Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Here to talk all things hockey are your hosts, Brad Crisco, Ryan Hanna, and Evan Lobsinger.
Evan, don't ever believe Brad when he talks about how tired he is from parenting.
Why?
I watched Hank and Mika the other night.
Oh,
Dead simple, dude. This parenting thing is so easy. I sat on the couch, watched a hockey game, ate some of his poutine, had a can of zero sugar iced tea, left. Boom, nothing.
Just gave him a couple knives to go play with, and
I didn't even see him.
oh, perfect.
It's easy.
hey, Ryan, where are the kids?
It's always easier when you don't have to deal with them.
Oh my God. I heard them at one point. Hank said, "Help, Ryan, help. Hi, Ryan, I really need your help." No,
Shut up, stay in the closet.
No, they were dead simple. They just like stay in the rooms. That was the easiest babysitting job of my life. I thought, oh wow, that was very nice of Brad and Crystals to set it up, because I know it can't possibly be this easy.
It was funny too, because it was the weirdest race against time before you got there too. Because obviously, like, I'm like, yeah, I'll just tell him to come like last minute, so like I don't have to waste any of his time. But I wanted to make sure Hank at the very least was asleep before you got there.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, he's getting here at 8:30, and like at like 10 after 8, Hank's still like doing backflips on his bed. I'm like, no, you little shit. So I spent those 10 minutes like, do you know how hard it is to put effort in to something to keep someone calm? Like it's the most backwards thing in the world. I'm like, no, Hank. Like I literally laid with him for 20 minutes. Anytime he tried to move, it was just kind of like, no, rub your back. Don't move.
Soothing
Don't move.
aggressively.
He fell asleep like 30 seconds before you walked in the door. I'm like, oh, thank God.
I did wake both the kids up, and I taught them the fine art of taking one screw out of a piece of furniture a day. And I gave them a bunch of different little screw tips. I got them a kit. So
Weird. I did the same thing. I also gave him a key to your house.
I welcomed this unto myself, didn't I? The last point here, the drawing that you did of the duck on the fridge.
The doke.
The doke. There's a drawing on the fridge of what's supposed to be a duck, but it's spelled D-O-K-E, and it does not look like a duck. And Brad, I'm concerned. We need to get you checked out. That is not a good drawing, my friend.
How is it spelled?
D-O-K-E.
Doke.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a doke.
Yeah.
It's a doke.
It's not too far off the way Brad spells, so.
Hey, man, I was bad at a lot of things in school, but I won a lot of spelling contests.
Well, they didn't have to check your capitalization.
Or punctuation. If it's just the word, no grammar or syntax, I'm golden.
Oh, God.
Can you tell this show has been running since before Brad had either of his kids?
Yes.
Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, folks. This is the kind of show opening that you get when we've been running for over 7.5 years. Here to talk to you about all things Red Wings, NHL playoffs, and the world of hockey. I am one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
And I'm a dope.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast will be the third and final installment of our Red Wings season in review series, where we take a look back at the 2021-2022 NHL season for the Detroit Red Wings. We finished the forwards up over a couple episodes, which were split up conveniently by some, pretty big news and content. We had Elliot Friedman on recently, and Jeff Blasha was fired or let go, so that was obviously something we had to address. So today will be defense and goalies. We'll actually be talking about the depth signings that happened, and as well as some movement of prospects around Detroit's system, out of Detroit's system. We'll be taking a look at the playoffs, the drama in there, and then we'll see what else we get to. Before that, I do want to mention that this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, as always, is in support of the Jamie Daniels Foundation, which is an initiative that we're extremely, extremely proud to support. We started a Wings Money on the Board campaign before the start of last season in conjunction with in partnership with our good friend Prashant Iyer. And through that, by making pledges remotely related to the Red Wings in any way over the course of the season, you have helped us raise, and with Winged Wheel Podcast Nights at the LCA, you've helped us raise $29,000 for the Jamie Daniels Foundation in just one season. And we're not done yet. The Calder Trophy is to be awarded in mid to late June. And once that happens, I think some last minute pledges are triggered, and let's see if we can hit that 30K stretch goal. So thank you all very much. Wings Money on the Board. It will run again next season. We're very, very excited, and be sure to check out jamiedanielsfoundation.org. Speaking of Prashant Iyer, Part 2 of the If I Were Steve Yzerman series is up on the wingedwheelpodcast.com blog. There will be a link in the in the description of this episode. This one covers coaches galore. Essentially, every one of the top candidates that you can think of is likely to be mentioned in there. He talks about the European coaches. He talks about coaches in the AHL and junior systems. He talks about previous NHL coaches. Yes, Barry Trotz. Yes, Sergei Fedorov. Yes, Ricard Gronberg, Cam Abbott. They're all outlined in there. The amount of insight, the look into systems, they look into impacts on players in terms of analytics, in terms of, the quote unquote eye test. Comprehensive is a word. Prashant was laughing, messaging us. He's like, this keeps getting longer. So please go check that out. It is a fantastic primer for maybe what to expect as Yzerman looks for the next Red Wings head coach. Okay, Red Wings defense. Terrible since Lidstrom left is the primer for every time we do these season reviews of this position. But this is the first year where we have a glimmer of hope. Actually, it's not a glimmer of hope. It is like a pillar of fire beaming up from the ground up. Like, that is how brightly Moritz Seider has shined for the Red Wings in his rookie season relative to his peers, relative to expectations, relative to his draft position, relative to every other rookie in the NHL. It has been... We are in the business of tempering expectations because this has been a long, arduous rebuild. We tempered a lot of expectations, and every one of you who shot for the stars when you were talking about what Moritz Seider could be, even that wasn't enough to compare to the season he had. What do you make of Seider's season and what we have to look forward to in him in coming years?
He's good.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode.
Okay, fine. He's a real good.
Yeah, Moritz Seider had the kind of impact that we would have been over the moon about, I'd say, at age 23, 24 for him. I don't even think that's like an exaggeration. He is without a doubt the Red Wings' best defenseman, and he is firmly in the conversation, if not maybe clear to some people, as the Red Wings' best player right now, depending on who you ask and what you're looking for. But the season he had from the get-go was just, I think everyone's jaw was progressively dropping more and more.
Yeah, it's, again, we beat this drum all year, but it's worth repeating. There was no area of the game he was bad in. He excelled at everything. Defensive zone, he was their best defenseman, and he did it well. Breakouts, he was their best defenseman at it, and he did it well. Transitions, he was their best defenseman, and he did it well. Offensive zone, puck movement, cycle, shot, whatever. Pick any aspect of the game of hockey as a defenseman, and Mo Seider was the Red Wings' best defenseman at it. Even physicality. He's a unicorn in the sense that, in that sense, that there's no real weakness to his game. He didn't have a perfect season, obviously. Nobody does.
And no one on the Red Wings does.
Yeah. There was times where he knew how much skill he had, tried to do too much, and it bit him in the ass. And that happens, and that's fine. I'd rather, most of his mistakes were a result of that. Not he was drowning, he was out of position, he was out of his comfort zone, he was trying to do something he couldn't do. He can do everything. So for him, it's just about, as he ages, getting better at picking his spots for certain things. Like, the one that always jumps to my mind was that Spinorama behind the back pass across Toronto's offensive blue line. Right. And that led to, like, yeah, you can make that play, but that wasn't the time to do it. And, you did that exact same play multiple times that year in like different contexts, and it worked. That wasn't the time. And that's really the only flaw he had in his game. There was a lot of times where the other team would score a goal and you'd see he was way out of position, but then you backtrack like 10 seconds and it's because he was covering for someone else who was out of position. And, it's hard to pinpoint, why the walls are melting, why the water's boiling, why the carpet's peeling when the whole house is on fire.
Right.
So, some of them could have been his fault, some of them not. But either way, for a 20-year-old defenseman to come into the NHL, very quickly and very firmly establish himself as this team's number one defenseman, if not best player. It's between him and Larkin. is phenomenal. Obviously, the results haven't come out yet, but I think it's going to
be a Calder trophy.
Result in a Calder trophy for him. Maybe the odd like 5th place Norris vote. I doubt it, but you never know. Someone might just want to give him some recognition because who was it? Acting the Foolman had the best tweet. He's like, there is some credence to Michael Bunting not winning the Calder because he's playing with 2 of the best players in the world. Whereas Moritz Seider's playing with a defense crew that implies he sinned heavily in a previous life. So, yeah, that basically sums up Mo Seider's season.
Yeah, Mo Seider in a previous life golf solo and didn't let groups play through. Is that, I don't know, actually golf etiquette. I said that so confidently.
I think it's the inverse, ain't it?
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, so it shows what I know. I shot a 70 on 9 the other day. So you qualified it with the very measured. Here are the errors, just to show that we're not saying Moritz Seider's a perfect player. He's not the best defenseman in the league right now. He's not, prime Nick Lidstrom. We're not saying anything like that. So I'm going to thank you for laying that groundwork. That releases me to, just speak leaps and bounds about
call him Lidstrom and say he's the best defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah. What's Rowan's tagline? German Lidstrom.
Yeah.
Moritz Seider has come in and shown the maturity, the hockey sense, the know-how in the defensive game, the kind of offensive output that we didn't even really know would translate. Initially, we didn't know it was part of his game, and when we saw it overseas, we didn't know it would translate into the NHL. And he showed it after 5-10 games.
Not even that long.
He took a little while to ramp up. What didn't take long before he was moving a lockstep with Raymond in terms of best rookie in the NHL, and then just excelled past everyone else. In his defensive game, he uses his size and his reach, his long stick, and his skating, which is just so smooth for a guy of his size, to oftentimes stop plays before they start. Watch Moritz Seider's defensive highlight reel, or even just watch him in a game starting next season. Watch how many plays he stops at the Red Wings blue line. The other team is trying to move through the neutral zone, and either if they try to make any pass of any length, he is at the blue line anticipating with the kind of hockey sense that defensemen often lack until 2 or 3 seasons in. He does it with the confidence that defensemen typically lack until 2 or 3 seasons in. Defensemen don't come in as Seider does. This is a unicorn. This is more, the Red Wings were more confident than anyone else, and they took him 6 overall, and even they weren't expecting this. And anyone in the Red Wings management system would have said, yeah, we expected the world of Seider, but not this. The way he uses skating to work the blue line was something that I didn't know he would be able to do like that. Is he Cale Makar? No. Is he fantastic in terms of the other defensemen on the Red Wings and defensemen of his size? Yeah. And that has translated into offensive output on the power play. He makes an actual impact on the power play. He makes an actual impact when the Red Wings can get possession in the zone. Look at power play time for the Red Wings. Seider's involved with every one of them that he's not gassed or injured for. He played all 82 games, and his decision making, was he perfect? No, but so often on the blue line you'd see him and they would swarm him. Like the other team tried to collapse on him the same way they did on Raymond, but Seider was always able to make these like minute adjustments with how he carried the puck, how he protected the puck, pass it through their sticks, through their legs, make a pass that you would say, that's high risk, that's low risk. There's no one there, and it somehow always went through. Every facet of the game showed either brilliance or, future brilliance. There's nothing that I'm concerned about with Moritz Seider, and I said this, I think, last episode. If he develops only half as much as his peers of the same age over the coming years, he'll still be a Norris Trophy candidate in a few years' time. So
I think Moritz Seider's greatest strength is actually his confidence.
That's a really good point.
He first 5 games, he skates up to Victor Hedman and steals the puck away from him after the whistle. Who in their right mind, rookies are already pooping their pants most of the time and starstruck with who they're out on the ice with. But I never got that sense at all from Moritz Seider. He just showed up, trusted in his abilities, and has hit the ground running. Like, he went after Sidney Crosby, and like most people would just have their jaw
Right.
on the ice, watching this guy skate circles around you, where he's engaging in the physicality against Crosby and not afraid to get involved. Like, I think his confidence has really been what has unlocked his season that he's had.
I love how ready he is to jump into it. After years of watching Zdeno Chara just like bully people with his size, and he's not a freak like Zdeno Chara, but you just like to see a big guy who's not afraid to beat up on players who are smaller. That is genuinely a good thing. And think Seider has the strength of a 20-year-old. Imagine when he has the strength of a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old. Like, it will translate to him being a force on the ice in more ways than one. By the eye test, by analytics, however you want to measure his impact, far and away the Red Wings' best defenseman. It is scary to think he's going to get better. It's scary to think that his defensive game is going to become more well-rounded. It's scary to think he's going to get stronger. His skating is going to improve. The only thing that is actually like a risk for the Red Wings is what kind of dollar value is he going to come in at when you inevitably sign his extension, which you should do as soon as humanly possible, because his stock isn't going to get lower.
Yeah, you signed him for 8 years at whatever he asks for. That's pretty much how those negotiations should go.
You don't know the kind of contracts that him and Raymond are going to demand. A lot of that depends on agents. A lot of that depends on families. We don't know how these guys are. By all rights, they love being in Detroit. They're fantastic team players. Larkin and Bertuzzi and Gagne, whoever you perceive as leaders in the room, they have all said both of these rookies, they fit the Red Wings system. They fit the Red Wings way, TM. Like, the character thing is not an issue at all. It's funny because we actually used to get upset when the Red Wings used to name character as the first attribute for why they drafted a player. You're like, that's all well and good, but can they play hockey real well? This is what you want. You want someone who can play hockey real well and has the character.
Yeah, and hopefully it gives us many, many more years of the Mojo Show.
That's right. Yeah, he is also a star.
Yeah, that man was built to be in front of the camera, whether that's acting, doing a show, or playing hockey.
Good for him. That's Moritz Seider, likely Calder winner. We'll be talking about him plenty because of the aforementioned likely Calder winning.
That was fun. That part's over now.
Well, Edvinsson might take up the helm next year.
No, I'm talking about for this episode and
the rest of the defense.
The fun topics.
Let's do Filip Hronek, because I think this is an interesting one that this discussion has, I think, been put to the side for a little while in Red Wings fandom and in Red Wings media, because no one wants to sell Filip Hronek short. But I think this past season has confirmed that the lofty goals that we had after like the initial onset of Filip Hronek, the defenseman, they were way too lofty. I'm not saying he's outright a bad player. Like, he does have good impacts on the ice, but it is hard to watch him in certain facets of his game almost have regressed, and certain facets of his game where, 3 years ago or however long you were like, if he just improves on this piece of his game, then he'll be unstoppable. And that just hasn't moved at all at best. He's not a first pairing defenseman. And the way I see it is, you can use him as a second pairing guy, but it can't be with the amount of minutes that he had this season. This was a rough one to watch for Filip Hronek, and I think we need to call a spade here and understand that the bar was set way, way too high, way too early by us, by the team, by everyone.
Well, going back to how this Red Wings defense has been awful since Lidstrom retired, Hronek was the least awful of them. And he wasn't that old, so by default, he was thrust into the spotlight. I'm not going to bother going back and rewatching those breakout years for Hronek to see, was he actually good, or were we just like getting ahead of ourselves because it had been so long since we've seen a half-decent defensive prospect? But he's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
He's inconsistent, and when I say inconsistent, I don't mean game to game, I mean shift to shift. You truly never know what you're getting from him when he steps on the ice. He is a career near half a point per game defenseman, and that held up this year. That is legitimately good. That is above league average. His ice time was reduced this year, and it still was there. He can move the puck. He's aggressive, which is something this team lacks overall, and I'm a fan of that. He makes a lot of mistakes. Again, more because he's trying to do too much, not the alternative, which again is the better of the two problems to have. His defensive awareness is poor. His skating isn't great. His ability to bomb into empty nets is elite. His accuracy on shots from within the blue line, though, is horrendous. His decision-making on when to shoot from the point is horrendous. But when he does make the right decision to try and make a tough cross-ice pass, he can do it. And he did it a lot. It's just he picked his spots overall very poorly. So for Hronek, I think what he needs is a coach that can come in and, it sounds overly simplistic, teach him how to play hockey. When to use your skills and when to not. When to be aggressive, when to not. Because my overall impression of Hronek right now is he has no idea. He makes some baffling decisions, but when he makes the right decisions, it looks good. Because he is good. Because he can do it.
Brendan Smith.
Yeah.
He's almost Brendan Smith to the extreme, but his talent level is higher than Brendan Smith's ever was. He can do more things on the ice than Brendan Smith did. So that's why I'm still at least a little optimistic about Hronek's future, because I think with a really good coach, he can turn Hronek into a legit top 4 defenseman. I'm not saying he's going to be Seider. I'm not saying he's going to be a top pair guy. I'm not saying he's ever going to be the guy we hoped he would be. But if he is, if you have a number 2, a defenseman on your second pair who can run your second power play, put up over a half a point per game and not be a train wreck at 5-5, that's a really damn good second pairing defenseman. He's just got to iron out the many, many wrinkles in his game.
The shots are funny to me. Like that's the one where I'm like, what is happening with this defenseman? Was he absolutely perfect from that left, like top of the circle spot? No. I mean, that's a tough angle shot, shooting away from your body, often moving the other direction. It's kind of like,
he's flat out bad at that.
Well, when he was scoring all those goals, initially when he first broke onto the scene, he would hit it more often than players would.
Yeah, he was hitting the net at least.
And he would convert on some of them. So you didn't really mind that he was taking a trillion chances from the top of that left circle, because you're like, it's kind of like hitting opposite, like a home run, like on the opposite side than you typically do. My sports analogies today are god awful. My God. It's not easy and you don't see a lot of it, but a player who can do it effectively, at least more than average, you can appreciate it and they have the license to shoot. It is now at the point where you have to hope that Hronek misses by a mile, because if he's not missing by a mile, he's shooting it off the shins and it's going for a break the other way. You're certain it's not going to hit the net. And that to me is like you said, Brad, that's shot selection. That is positioning. That is anticipation. That's offensive hockey IQ. And those are things that we've seen him do well before. So if this is a failure in coaching, I hope whoever's brought in can help on that front, on the defensive game, just generally all the little things that seem to have dropped off. If it's, surrounding talent, I hope that the Red Wings who are coming in can help build up around him. We talk a lot about Seider. He tries to do too much, covers for his teammates, is probably the only defenseman on the ice at the time who can create anything. So we say, oh, okay, that's our excuse for Seider's mistakes. I think the same could be afforded to Hronek, but the clock is running on making the most of him. You almost think, and this is best case scenario, that he's been ignored in terms of his development. And I'm not saying that that's the actual case, but just to see him plateau like this is super disheartening. So an outside fan coming in and saying, why are these guys, so pessimistic about someone who's been a half point per game player? A lot of teams would love that. It's just that you think you'd get way more, and his actual impacts on the ice, like you mentioned, Brad, it varies wildly and not really in a good way.
Yeah. I think when the Red Wings are good, Filip Hronek will be a second power play guy if he's still on the team, and he will probably just be a guy in the decor. I don't think he will be a massive contributor at 5-on-5 hockey.
So, okay, saying that, because I don't think that's an unfair statement to make. Is there not an opportunity here then, considering Hronek's age and considering some may have not the professional scouting or the analysis of him that teams closer to Detroit would have? There's a sell high option here, right? In terms of trades. Sure. It really depends on the direction Yzerman moves with this team. But if you can get significant futures for Hronek, do you do it? Because that's a lot of defensive minutes that you're giving up. That's a lot of pressure on Edvinsson. That's a lot of pressure on any other defenseman coming in. That's a lot of pressure on Seider and Lindstrom. And it's not an easy thing to say. Like, I'm not saying go trade Hronek and have no plan, but is that on the table?
Oh, they have a plan. Steven Kampfer. That's why they acquired another right-handed defenseman, Ryan. Didn't you know? He's as good as gone. No. I'll start by saying if the sell high option is an option, yeah, that's probably preferred, but I don't think there's a sell high option. Peter Chiarelli is no longer employed in the NHL as a general manager.
Right.
Which means I don't think that big return for Filip Hronek is out there. I think most teams are going to be competent enough to know that, hey, there might be something here, but we're not paying a premium for it.
You say that, but I don't know. I think there's always...
Pierre Dorian, still a GM.
There's a Ken Holland somewhere.
Hey, about to go to the conference finals, buddy. Whoa now.
There are a lot of... And it doesn't even need to be like a stupid person, like a stupid move. It could just be the market. Like the market we had for defensemen this trade deadline, we know for a fact, like we have information that the Red Wings were working on a possible Hronek deal, but anyone who wanted to move anything for him wasn't willing to move futures. They wanted to make a hockey trade, which isn't in the Red Wings' interest right now. Still, I think a hot market and scarce resources in terms of right-handed defensemen on the block. Look at the way Florida loaded up and how much they paid for Sherratt. I don't see it as impossible. Like you said, it's not likely. Teams are better and better at professional scouting every year, and there's more and more tape on Hronek every year, but I don't know. I don't want to say it's impossible.
It's not impossible. I just said not likely.
Yeah, that's fair. Hronek's not really talked about as one of the players who needs to have a good season under whoever the new coach is, but, you know, Filip Zadina is the hallmark for that. Filip Hronek fits right in there. Just the Phillips, really. Go in there and they need to take this opportunity to be better. It's a lot on the coach too, but the Red Wings really need those guys to thrive. Let's talk about the defenseman that was brought in perceivably as a filler before we found out that Steve Yzerman has been watching him for years and years and years. Jake Wallman, originally from St. Louis, came over in the Nick Leddy trade. It's been kind of a, not to overstate it, but a revelation.
Oh, that's so depressing.
That was a real groan, folks. He was actually about to say something, and then he processed that emotionally.
I still remember, like 10 minutes into the first period of his first game, I think I sent out a sarcastic tweet. Oh, Jake Wallman might be the best left-handed defenseman on this team. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so Jake Wallman ended up being the best left-handed defenseman on this team,
I will not take this Staal slander.
Absolutely not. That's Rockstar slander, Brad. You know better.
But Wallman was good. He wasn't anything special. He had a bomb for a shot. He could skate better than I thought, better than advertised. He wasn't a train wreck defensively. And he was a capable puck mover. I wouldn't say any aspect of his game is special or even very above average, with the exception of maybe his shot. He's, I don't know. Evan kind of used it to describe Hronek like in a funny derogatory way, but Wallman's a guy, but he could be a guy on a cup team. Like he's a guy you could see playing a role on the Red Wings when they're good and for many years because he doesn't, collapse under pressure. He can play his role effectively. Again, it's not going to be a big role when the Red Wings are good, but, with every other Red Wings defenseman on this team, other than Moritz Seider, you go, what's wrong with this defenseman? And you don't know whether to list all the reasons alphabetically or categorically. With Walman, you don't have that. And that's a huge positive.
Yeah, there's anything on that chart is in the positive. He's immediately at the top half.
Yeah, if there's a straight line and it's just, tiers going either way, most of his are just ever so slightly in the positive, but they're almost all in the positive, right?
He's an incremental gain.
Yeah, which is
We'll
fun.
take it.
And you need guys like that because A, you need depth players when you're good, and B, those depth players are generally pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So if you can have a guy like Walman who you don't have to pay much and he can play a role on a good team, and he wasn't even the main piece in the trade, it's a huge win.
He moves the puck up the ice real well. He skates real well, and he has an absolute cannon for a shot. Like, he shoots, and you can see him dent the goalie's pads.
And unlike Hronek, it hits the goalie, at least, who is between the posts.
So you're either getting a rebound, or there was a goal where it eked through. Like, he literally shot through a goalie who did everything right, but the puck just went through him. Is he good defensively? No.
He's all right.
It's not
He's not.
It's not a strength.
World beater.
It's not a strength, I would say.
It's never good when we're going through our defensemen. We're like, yeah, their defensive game not that great.
The best defensive defenseman the Red Wings have has played 82 professional games in the NHL. But Walman's, like you said, Brad, Walman has that unique ability to do something impactful on the ice, where even when the Red Wings start to get really good, you can see him on the third pair and on the second power play unit. Maybe he's moving the puck up the ice. That puck on his stick the good things are going to happen with it. And okay, is he going to be a world beater defensively? No, but if he's moving and transporting the puck reliably up the ice, a great way to play defense is to be playing offense, right? So that's something that the Red Wings have lacked as well. If you think about the season Nick Leddy had before he got traded, was he good? No, it's probably one of the worst seasons in Nick Leddy's career in a long, long time. But was he good for the Red Wings? Yes, because he was a reliable puck mover up the ice and through the neutral zone. And that's something where there was nothing to compare to his peers because no one else was doing it. If your name wasn't Moritz Seider, you were not doing it.
The Red Wings just needed like an NHL average defenseman who did nothing special, but was just like kind of a steady Eddie.
And it was kind of mind blowing that the Red Wings got the defensive version of that in Walman, like on defense. They got an offensive version, I think lesser impact than Walman, but still usable in Sundqvist. And they still got a second round pick for Nick Leddy. Like, it's not going to turn into a first overall pick. It wasn't a first round pick they got back, but that was a very subtle masterclass trade, I think, by Yzerman. That was really good work.
Yeah, if that second round pick hits to be someone like a Jake Walman, if you get 3 usable NHL players out of a rental, that's phenomenal.
Albert Johansson was the third of the Red Wings' 3 second-round picks in his year.
In 2019, yeah.
Yeah, we were looking at that earlier.
Just don't look at the first 2.
So if you can consider, well, jury's out on Master Simone. And
fair enough.
Tuomisto's interesting to put it.
Let's just focus on Johansson.
Right. The Red Wings get another Johansson with that pick. And they got Walman for the next however many years. Because even if you're a Red Wings, I want to tank. I want Bedard. I want Michkov. I want Fantilli. The Red Wings need to tank. You still need guys who can play NHL hockey.
Yeah, Walman's only, 26?
He's young. Yeah.
So you can get many years out of him.
And who knows how who knows what his ceiling is. Because similar to Robbie Fabry, he came up through a St. Louis team that was thriving and had a lot of players.
Not very high, I'll tell you that much.
What do you mean? His ceiling?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Where do you cap him out at?
I have no idea, but it's not high.
Oh, well.
If it was, they wouldn't trade him.
Way to damper that. Well,
when you have Krug, Perunovich, so on and so forth ahead of him.
He's not going to be a first pairing guy.
No, but somebody's going to be in the trenches. Yeah, well, maybe.
Maybe for the Red Wings, but that's not very real. Anyhow, Jake Walman is a guy that is usable, and it's not like this is a below replacement level NHL player, and that is a win for the Red Wings.
He's not a hold on to your butt.
No.
You know what makes me excited? The fact that we might only be a few years away from not having these type of conversations about Jake Walman.
Oh, God, yeah. Okay, let's move on to Marc Staal. We joke.
I will not hear any slander.
Okay, shut up. I'll shut up. Evan, Marc Staal is yours.
Oh, we're done. That's it. I will not hear any slander. We're done.
We joke a lot about Marc Staal, the Rockstar, Marc Staal, the beauty, Marc Staal, the world beater. But let's take a look at Marc Staal's progression since coming over from New York. The New York Rangers paid the Red Wings a second-round draft pick to take on Marc Staal as a cap dump. Marc Staal has taken on a leadership role within this team. He has not only, mentored the young kids, he's been a mentor to the Seiders, he's been a mentor to whoever he's been playing with. He's not only, I think, gotten better over time with the Red Wings, he has actually he's been playing to the point where I think I kind of want this guy back. The first time he was brought back, I was like, I understand, but it's not.
We got nobody. One of our defensemen has half a leg.
You need to bring in guys who have played in the NHL. And is he your favorite? No, but you're not going to go out and spend a ton for a guy when you're not even a playoff team. So I get why the Red Wings brought him back. Some consistency, some veteran leadership. But I think he was downright, relative to what you could have expected from him, good this year.
I think he got better as his time has progressed as a Red Wing. When
100%.
he first came in, I was like, this guy stinks. Like, he is terrible. He has barely any business being in the NHL. But I think they really found a role for him, being a mentor and, just trying to be a bit of a steady Eddie once again. And I think once he kind of knew that role and he didn't need to try and be one of the guys that they go to, I think it has worked out so much better. And you can just tell that the team loves him being on the team because they made those ridiculous shirts that we've got over there.
Oh, yeah.
And you can just tell that they really enjoy Marc Staal, the person, and sort of one of the leaders on the team. And I think there's still room for guys like that in the NHL, even if they're not, top four, like maybe they're hanging on to the end of their career. Like, I think there's still room for guys like him. And I think Marc Staal served a purpose this season.
That's exactly the right way to put it. He served a purpose and he served it well. Relative to the NHL defensemen across the league, was he good? No. But relative to what the Red Wings needed him to do, and honestly, at times on the ice, like objectively speaking, was he good? Yeah. He made mistakes. Sometimes he was a liability. Sometimes teams exposed him. But he also made a real...
You could say that about 75% of this team.
Of the entire team. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of jokes made about leadership and intangibles and development for young players and those kind of mentors, but those are real substantial things. And if you're going to have a franchise that's losing, if you're going to have a franchise that's going to be in the gutter for as long as the Red Wings have been, you need to find a way to make sure the spirit and the development of these young guys isn't broken. And the leadership of guys like Marc Staal, like Sam Gagner, that's how you do it.
You need guys who can stop the sinking.
Yeah.
Like when the losing streaks happen and the team's playing like garbage, young guys, they'll just crumple in for the most part and the pain won't stop. But when you bring in the older guys, they kind of steady everything up, and you need that as a tanking team.
It sounds like the most unscientific, just stupid, aimless way to talk about hockey, but it genuinely does make it, like, that steadying hand does make an impact. And is Moritz Seider, is Marc Staal, always mix those two up. Is Marc Staal going to be a Norris Trophy winner again in his career? No. But do I have just the utmost respect and appreciation for what he's done for the Red Wings for the past couple of years and last season especially? Yeah.
And he could have just been like, I'm not going to the Red Wings.
100%.
He's like, these guys stink. I want nothing to do with this. I'll take my check and I'll see you later.
He could have gone to Florida. He could have gone to Toronto. He could have gone to,
I will not stand for this Joe Thornton slander.
Well, he's not winning a cup, right?
Not yet.
So yeah, good on Staal. I can, for where he is in his career, I can appreciate what he did for the Red Wings. Okay, so it's going to get a little bit easier. I think we're probably going to talk about one or two more guys. Gustav Lindstrom, I think, is an interesting player to talk about. Decided third pairing defenseman, especially on the right side behind Seider and Hronek. But I think the start to his year was a continuation to the end of the previous season where he looked really good and he was looking impactful. And you saw parts of his game where you're like, yeah, he's solid defensively and he's doing the kinds of things you like to see out there. But I think that kind of tapered off halfway. He kind of went the way of the team. When the team started to play poorly around December, January, you saw more holes in Lindstrom's game. He had more rough games than he maybe would have had at the start of the year. So it was an interesting one from Lindstrom.
He's nothing special. He never has been, and this is who he is. I've been on this for years because
just call the guy and move on.
Remember everything I said about Jake Wallman? Dial it back about 15% and move those ticks ever so slightly the other direction, and that's Gustav Lindstrom to this point. He's not horrible, and he's never been horrible, but he's never been great. And even in his progression, he's never had those moments when he was a prospect where you're like, oh, this guy's going to be a stud. He's a guy. He's a slightly below average guy.
Does he owe you money?
No, it's just, okay. You want to know my honest opinion on this? You want to know what's happening right now? And I'm going to say it, and it's going to make more sense to you than you're going to be willing to admit. Okay, are you ready?
Oh, I hate when he does this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, he's usually right. Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Alexei Marchenko.
I knew you were going to say that.
We're back.
Brad,
was he objectively bad? No. Was he very replaceable? Obviously.
I think he's worse than Alexei Marchenko. Or no, sorry. I think Alexei Marchenko is worse than Gustav Lindstrom. But
probably
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you took the name off all the player, if you took all the names off every player on the ice except for his, I still would barely notice him.
Yeah. Thank you. That's all I'm saying is this guy has a reputation on social media for being good, which sounds harsh to say because he's not. But there are definitely defensemen on this team, and multiple of them, who are definitely worse than he is. He is a guy, I just don't see the upside like I see in a Wallman.
He's the grocery stick for me.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's better than him, I know that they are good. Anyone worse than him, I know that they should not be there.
Exactly, yeah. He's almost the ideal NHL seventh defenseman. Hopefully we don't have to play him. But if we do, he's going to step in the lineup and for the most part not shit his pants.
I think Gustav, okay, first of all, I understand where you're coming from, and here's where the disconnect is. I'm not coming at this from the same angle as people who think like Gustav Lindstrom is a second pairing defenseman. Like none of that. I'm talking about Gustav Lindstrom as a number 6 guy, which is what he's decidedly been for the Red Wings when they've been healthy enough to say that, which is a horrifying statement. But I think he's a 23-year-old defenseman who has taken small, incremental, not earth-shattering steps to become a reasonable choice for the Red Wings as a everyday number 6 guy in their lineup. Would I love a version of the Red Wings where we don't have to talk about the everyday number 6 guy in their lineup and he can be a passing note in the episode? You have no idea how much I yearn for that day.
7 years.
I was talking to our friend Ryan from the Rangers world, and we were talking about how exciting it is covering the Rangers right now and how well it's going for them over there, Blue Shirts breakaway, and how a winning team makes a world of difference in terms of the mentality and the excitement and the just the audience for everything that they do. And all I could think of was, I honestly can't wait. It hurts my heart. So yes, I get what you're saying.
You basically said what I said, but with more positive spin, because you said he's an acceptable number 6 defenseman on the Detroit Red Wings.
Okay, so here's a question, because you said Jake Wallman has a role in this team if all goes well as the team gets better. Does Gustav Lindstrom, if he continues, if he can find progression in his defensive game, can he be an everyday number 6 guy on a better Red Wings team than we see now?
If he gets 20% better than he is now, to put an arbitrary number on it,
that's a big ask.
That's about where he needs right now. Where he's at, no chance. Absolutely not. He would not be anywhere near a contending team. So yeah, 15 to 20% improvement. At least bring something to the game, because he's not a great skater. He doesn't have a good shot. He's not an exceptional puck mover. Like what does he bring to the table? Because even if you look at the good teams, they're quote unquote bad defensemen. They're either huge, they can skate, or they can move the puck. Lindstrom's not particularly good or even above average at any of those things. But again, the positive with Gustav Lindstrom is he's not particularly horrible at any of those things.
That makes it more difficult to improve in the NHL. If you don't have one thing that you can go to that can separate you from other people on your team or other people who would take your job, it's going to be very difficult for him to remain in the NHL.
I can appreciate that, and I don't think anything that either of you said are wrong. He's definitely a guy who we could laugh about this conversation in 2 years. We're saying, why are we still talking about him, or why were we talking about him? But I just, and maybe this is just the version of me that roots for underdogs. This team being in the gutter for so long.
It's a high second round pick, but
forgot about that. This team being in the gutter for so long, you can appreciate the non-stellar development paths that are still development paths. Anyhow, Gustav Lindstrom, I don't think he's ever going to be an offensive stalwart. I don't think there's ever going to be much to say for his offensive game. His path to remaining on this team needs to be having the kind of defensive impacts that he had, I think, to start this past season. And he needs to be more consistent. That consistency went away. And like you said, if you're not going to stand out in a lot of areas, you just need to be rock solid. And that kind of went away, which was concerning for me. The last player, and this is very fast before we talk about the goalies, Jordan Osterley. Jordan Osterley is Darren Helm, Luke Glendening on defense. Not in terms of what he did in the game, his play style, but in that they were asked to play way higher than they had any business being in the lineup. And they did their damnedest, and you can't be mad at him for it. There came a point where Danny DeKeyser was just untenable.
Did we even talk about Danny DeKeyser?
No, because the whole thing is untenable. There's no point in punching down, honestly, I think, for DeKeyser. We all know the story there. His body fell apart. He just wasn't able to keep up.
Yeah, thanks for your service, Danny. We wish you luck in the future.
He's going to be with the Red Wings in a development role or coaching or whatever it might be. And by all rights, that seems to be a good decision because he's smart. He's really well liked. He's integrated in the system. He's integrated in the community. Fantastic.
That's still a win for the Red Wings because it still helps improve their chances at winning, hopefully.
It's a net positive for the Red Wings considering if you have him off the ice but still contributing his hockey brain, great. I think once they waived him and once he wasn't really in the lineup before he came back towards the end of the year, Osterley took the spot of we need someone to play on Seider's left side who is as much not an anchor as possible, to word it poorly. Was he good? No. Was he good enough to be playing with Seider? No. Is he a first pairing defenseman even on the worst team in the NHL? No. He knows that. Jeff Blashill knew that. Steve Yzerman knows that. We knew that. Everyone knew that. He still did his best. And you know what? It's not easy to eat all those minutes when you weren't in that role before.
It's not easy to do it when you're drowning.
Moritz Seider was allowed the opportunity to do what he did on the ice. No, he didn't have a world-class left-handed defenseman on his left side, but I can't find it in me to beat up on a guy who was asked to play well out of position. So I can appreciate Jordan Osterley. Also scored a couple timely goals, like massive goals for the Red Wings.
Yeah, every goal he scored was either an OT winner or a tying goal late in the game. I think he only scored 2, but still.
And you're the most right you could be. Yeah. I don't know. That's my thing on Osterley. I think his, much like Staal, like he was asked to come in and do a job, then was asked to do way more, and he did it the best he could.
He's the only guy who left the EU as a contract for next season.
Doesn't horrify me. I just hope that he doesn't have to play as much for his sake and for the Red Wings' sake and Moritz Seider's sake, but we all know he likely will.
Yeah, he'll probably have to.
Unless Ian Cole comes over.
Maybe Edvinsson and Johansson will make the team.
Gotta hope, right? That's the only way Osterley doesn't eat up like 20 minutes a game again.
Yeah, honestly.
Okay, the goalies. Alex Nedeljkovic. Wow. Certainly not boring.
No, he is not.
I think the only thing that we didn't see from him this season was a goal. We saw everything else.
Did he have a goalie fight?
He got very, very close.
Very close.
Tried. Oh, the Revs broke it up, didn't they?
Yes.
He was there. He was ready.
Yeah, the highest highs and some really low lows. The thing that makes me come out of this feeling overall really positive about Nedeljkovic is the way he recovered his game towards the end of the season when he had zero help from his team. He was in a rut there for a while. Started off hot, where to the point where we were thinking, we don't think he's going to be top 3, but it wouldn't be crazy for the top 3 Calder Trophy candidates to be all Red Wings. He fell off. The other, like Zegras, Bunting, etc., rose up in those rankings, but he was stellar, and you saw the kind of play where you're like, I can't believe Carolina let him go.
He was a rookie goalie who for half the season looked like a legit number one goalie. I think that alone cancels out the absolute horror show that was February and March. Because there wasn't a lot of redeeming factors in that time window.
Right.
But again, it was, a rookie goalie playing his first season. We know the jokes about him being nominated for the Calder with Carolina the year before, but I think he only played like 24 games that year. So he had never seen a workload like this behind that defense. Could he have played better? Yeah. Am I that rattled that it went that poorly for that long of a stretch? Not really. He established and proved that the talent he had in Carolina still existed in Detroit. So it's not a talent or a skill issue with Nedeljkovic. It's now just a consistency issue, which is a problem for goalies. And it's one he has to fix if he wants to stick around for when the Red Wings are good. But it's easier to fix the inconsistency than it is to make talent appear out of nowhere. So it was a positive.
I'm not too worried about Nedeljkovic. Like, I think with a better coach coming in, they'll plan the workload a lot better than what Jeff Blashill did for him and and Greiss. And the double pulls and all that stuff like that. That's going to make a veteran goalie question what the hell's going on, let alone a rookie goalie who's playing way outside his workload limits at this point in his career. So I'm not worried about him at all. I think, with a better strategy for the goaltending, I think it'll all work itself out.
I think he's a great testament to the kind of, like you said, Evan, the kind of emotional management you need with a goalie. Goalies are lunatics, all of them. Insane. You have to be. To stop that puck consistently and want to do it and celebrate when it hits you, you got to be just off your rocker. But you can extract the most out of your goalies by putting them in positions to succeed. That happens in a few different ways. Like you said, Evan, enough with the double pulls. There are just some basic things that you can do in terms of workload, what games you're going in, when you give them a chance to come back, giving them a good matchup, et cetera, et cetera. I can only hope there is only one way to go, and that's up from here, from what we saw last season with Blashill. In terms of the other thing that you can do to support, he came from Carolina, who has one of the most talented defensive cores in the league, where every goalie seems to go there and thrive, and any goalie who leaves there is left a little jarred. Going from Carolina to the Detroit Red Wings in terms of defensive core is like...
Welcome to hell.
It is like you dropped from the heavens above, from cloud 9 to hell. Like, it is... If Moritz Seider is not on the ice, which mercifully he was for a lot of the game, nearly half sometimes, you have essentially nothing by way of defensive support. So, yeah, he went through the ringer in probably one of the most jarring changes of scenery. And if we didn't see the highs that we did, and he put together some consistent stretches. It wasn't like shutout and then 11 straight 10-goal games or something. Like he played well.
He stole a significant number of wins for the Red Wings this year.
100%. That's what makes me agree with both of you that there's a lot to look forward to. And I think the Red Wings do have someone that they can lean on. I will say my summary for Greiss is that I think the clock has run out on him in terms of being a useful backup. I think he did better in the season prior. For all the lows that we talked about for Nedeljkovic, I think Greiss's were just as bad, if not worse, and he did not have the highs that Nedeljkovic did. Very few times did we see Greiss do what he did the season previous after Bernie got hurt. So I think another thing they need to do for Nedeljkovic is A, goalie to compete, and B, a goalie to be in the net for when Nedeljkovic needs some time away from being the starter. Because it is going to be exceptionally difficult to be a 55 to 65 game starting goalie for these Red Wings until they're better.
They're going to need a backup goalie who can play a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
A lot of games.
We'll see if Hellberg is brought in. We'll see who they bring in free agency. Maybe, they're taking on that Mrazek contract. That is going to be like the wildest tandem of goals. Nedeljkovic and Mrazek. There won't be a dull day for sure.
No.
So, and all that is to basically hold until Coast is ready to come to North America, to either Grand Rapids and then eventually Detroit, right?
Yeah, you got to think Coast is in Grand Rapids next year.
You'd hope so. We'll see.
With the playoffs he's having.
To start, at least, yeah. Any other thoughts on the goaltending?
God bless their souls for being goaltenders on the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, no kidding.
Whenever you see them, just give them a hug.
Okay. We are going to, before we chat about some other news, let you know that this episode of the Winged Wheel podcast is proudly brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, a sponsor that gives hockey fans what we really need, even more excitement in the game. There's so many reasons why FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. They're simple to use with great odds on different betting markets, giving you more action every game day. Plus, they're tons of fun with unique bet types like same game parlay and exclusive promos on the biggest events. And when you win, you get your winnings back safely in as little as 24 hours. Now listen to this. FanDuel is letting you place your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. Just place a bet on any game and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win that first bet. If you win, you keep the cash. If you lose, you get up to $1,000 back in site credit. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get started with that risk-free bet, and be sure to sign up with promo code WWP so they know the Winged Wheel podcast sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code WWP. You must be 21 and older, present in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, West Virginia, Indiana, Colorado, Iowa, Tennessee, Virginia, or Michigan. First online real money wager only. Site credit is non-withdrawable and expires in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, or Virginia, Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789, 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-270-7117 in Michigan. So the Red Wings news on hand here are the signings of Taro Hirose and Steven Kampfer.
I cannot wait till the Red Wings play the Leafs and Steven Kampfer and David Kampfer in the corner battling for a puck.
Isn't there another Kampfer in the league as well?
Wow.
Yeah, I think there is too. I think he's on Colorado.
Are you thinking of
Kampfer? That's where you're coming from.
Yeah.
JT Kampfer.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. But spelled completely differently.
Yeah. There's Kampfer with an A, with a K-A, and Kampfer with a C-O.
Poor Mick. Poor Mick. Anyhow, let's start with Kampfer, brought in basically as depth here. Like you don't know that he's not going to be the Jordan Oesterle of the future. He shoots right. He's been a journeyman. He used to play for Michigan. He's not exactly young. He's, 33? He'll be 34 at the start of next season.
It's not old. That's not old.
Did he win a cup with Boston?
In 2011, yes.
Yeah. Which was his...
Wasn't that their scary team?
His rookie year.
Where they had like Zdeno Chara, Thornton.
No.
No?
They didn't win with Thornton.
Didn't they?
No, Thornton doesn't have a cup.
No.
Sean Thornton. Ryan.
Holy shit.
Ryan, buddy, I know it's late.
They traded him when he was a rookie, and then, yeah.
How do you guys put up with me?
You're not usually this wrong.
No. This is amazing. I'm concerned I'm having a stroke.
What do you smell right now?
Burnt toast like I do every day. Anyhow, someone else talk about this guy. I'm very clearly a liability right now.
So remember everything I said about Gustav Lindstrom? If that gets worse, here's Kampfer. If that gets better, here's our number 7 defenseman. That's, it's an overly simplistic answer, but that's probably what it is. And there is an outside chance this is a little bit of insurance, having another right-handed shooting defenseman. If for whatever reason the Red Wings are down one right-handed shooting defenseman by the time game 1 rolls around for reasons.
Right.
Yeah, he's, for all the things we say about Marc Staal, guys who have been there, done that, this is the light version of that. He's been around a long time. He's seen a lot of things. Even if it was his rookie year, he has won a cup. He's not anything special. I don't expect him to be a train wreck. He's a guy.
He's, so he went from Michigan, he was drafted by the Ducks, ended up in the Boston system, started in 2010, 2011 with Boston, had a little stint with Minnesota, played with Florida, a bunch of AHL teams as well, the Rangers, the Bruins again, and then had a season in the KHL as well. So they have him on a 2-way deal, which doesn't affect like waivers or anything, but just means that if he's in the AHL, he gets a lower salary. So it stands to reason that they expect him to be in the AA more so. So depth signing, but like you said, a lot can happen. And depending on the direction Steve Yzerman moves with the team this offseason, he might be called on. to play a stint in the NHL. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see him at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him for 45 games, you know?
Exactly.
Taro Hirose. Taco's back.
Taco time.
Yeah. It's good to see that the Hiroses, like, these are not needle moving deals. Nothing has changed with Hirose. This isn't like a renewal to say, okay, now he's going to make the lineup. I suspect we have what we have in Hirose. But he's a very important player for the Grand Rapids Griffins, and I appreciate him when he gets a call up to Detroit. Would I like to see him get an extended look? Yeah, I think there's more to be said for how he can contribute, especially on the power play, but I think him at the NHL level, he just can't hang in terms of the pace and the physicality of the game. Like the space, the time and space that you get at the NHL level is completely different than the A and anywhere else. So I think that's why he's not a regular NHLer.
The way I evaluate it is, would they be able to sustain themselves in a Colorado or Avalanche series? If the answer is no, then it probably isn't going to work out.
Another two-way deal.
Well, I got a bad news for you. About 75% of the Red Wings said.
That's my point.
Here we are. Here we are. Oh, I can't wait till we're the Rangers at the very least. So it's a two-way deal. When he's in the NHL, his salary is $1.7 million. When he's in the A, it's half that. So good on him for making a little bit better change for when he's in the NHL. And congratulations to the Grand Rapids Griffins. They get a continuation of Taco, who's very popular there. Some news on, Filip Larsson has been released from the Allsvenskan, and according to Access Hockey Michigan, he's done with his ELC. So that one's promising, I think, for a flash in the pan as a goalie prospect. That seems to have now fizzled out.
Well, he was dynamite in the USHL, dynamite in the NCAA, tore his groin, and to be frank, has been bad ever since.
Yeah, it's just gone kind of downhill from there.
Sucks, but hey, it happens.
Tuomisto. He was the first of the second round picks in 2019, which was the first draft that Yzerman came in, but Tyler Wright was still around from the Holland years. Defenseman who was drafted over. I had some people like Niels Höglander, Kochetkov on Carolina was the very next pick. He's leaving and going to Liga on a 2-year deal, which is an interesting move after he's basically choosing to forego his junior and senior NCAA seasons to play pro hockey in Finland. It is an interesting move, I'd say. I'm not without concern in terms of his development path and his path to the AHL, but I think this just means the best case scenario is that it's a longer one. We're not looking at a Johansson timeline here.
I don't know the exact reasons why he's leaving, but it's not a good sign. I don't take this as a positive development. He just won a national title with Denver, a very, very strong program. For someone who you would think would have NHL aspirations, that seems like a pretty good development path, especially considering he played junior in Finland for an extra year, which a lot of people questioned because he was way too dominant for that league at that age, to maintain his NCAA eligibility. And then to come over for only 2 years and leave despite being in a really, really good program.
Could he be getting bad advice?
Possibly. It's possible.
I don't even think it's bad advice. Like, he could be getting more significant time than people thought, or than he thought he might be getting in Denver. Like, there's a lot that goes into play here. I'm not so ready to say that this is certainly a bad sign. I think it's interesting, and I think it could be of concern, but he's talking about the amount of ice time and the role he'll have on those teams. And we are seeing more and more attention to the European leagues and the strengthening of those programs, especially in partnership with NHL teams. Am I trying to take the most optimistic view of this that I can? Yeah. Transparently, yes. I'm trying to find the silver linings and the positives here. He's not dead in the water. He's not the same situation as Filip Larsson that we just talked about, but he's certainly not Albert Johansson, who is on his way over to the AHL and maybe even the NHL, depending on the camp that he has. He's gonna need to do really, really, really well over there, though.
Yeah, he's got to go over and dominate. Otherwise, I don't get it.
It's been interesting because Tuomisto was picked and a lot of people were like, who? And then a lot of scouts and a lot of, and Håkan Andersson, a lot of people talked about Tuomisto being one of the more underappreciated picks who could turn out to be really, really good. And then the initial part of his progression I thought was fantastic, was really great for in Detroit's prospect system, but hasn't really continued on that path. So we'll see. Last note here, before we jump over to the playoffs, Simon Edvinsson has been named the winner of the Elite Prospects Award given to the best junior U20 player in the SHL. Notable previous winners, Moritz Seider. So we can expect Simon Edvinsson to then win the Calder if the pattern is to persist. Good on him.
Has any team ever won back-to-back Calders? I'm sorry, I'm throwing that like totally.
Oh, I'm positive it's happened, and I'm not going to look it up. So
okay.
Let us know in the comments below if Ryan is completely right or completely wrong. Based on this episode, it's a toss-up.
Send us an email.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, the playoffs. What? The Battle of Alberta is baffling.
I actually don't know how either fan base, well, Edmonton less so now, but I don't know how either fan base handles it.
My heart would have popped by now. I absolutely would have.
So I'm going to phrase something to you. We're going to do some time traveling. We're going back to just before the playoffs start. I'm going to tell you Edmonton's goaltending is going to be terrible. Their defense is going to be slightly better than advertised, but still bad. They're one win away from the conference finals. How do you fill in that blank?
Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane
are scoring at record paces.
I knew they would steal games. I knew based on Connor McDavid finding a new level is an insane thing to be talking about at this point in his career, but we've seen it. We saw it in the first round. Leon Draisaitl has a high ankle sprain that Calgary is intentionally attacking. They are zeroing in on his ankle, and this is why teams just say upper or lower body injury. And then, the news got out, and then it wasn't you could figure out what was wrong with him just by watching him, but Calgary's going after it now. Leon Draisaitl, I believe, has now an NHL record for consecutive 3-point games. Connor McDavid is nearing NHL records for, consecutive multi-point games. Evander Kane is just taking advantage of every opportunity that those two best in the world players give him. And the Calgary Flames seem to not have an answer. I don't understand. I don't want to say they don't have an answer. They tied that game yesterday. They got it to 3-3. Mike Smith allowed them to tie that game yesterday.
Yeah, that wasn't much of an answer. That was a gift given to them.
And you run those games, you run them through the simulator again, and maybe you don't get 3-1 Oilers at the point of this recording, but Connor McDavid and, Draisaitl and Kane, I don't want to discredit their efforts, but Connor McDavid might single-handedly will this team to the conference finals. And if they do this to Calgary, who's to say they couldn't do it against Colorado, who's currently up 3-0 on St. Louis right now?
Sounds about right.
Sorry, in the game, they're up 3-1 in the series.
Going into the game last night, Connor McDavid had more points in these playoffs than Sidney Crosby had in the entire playoffs when he won the Conn Smythe. And then he added 2 assists to that last night. Evander Kane has scored more goals in the first 11 games of a playoff than anybody not named Johan Franzen in the last 20-something years. And he's tied with Franzen. If everybody remembers that series in 2008 against Colorado, those playoffs. Draisaitl, like I said, he's on that assist pace. Zach Hyman has 1 billion goals, and nobody else on the Edmonton Oilers has done anything of consequence, and they are 1 win away from the conference finals. Now, this is the Edmonton Oilers. There is no guarantee they close this series off.
No.
Because one could argue that beyond the players we've mentioned, the best player for the Edmonton Oilers in this series has been Jacob Markstrom, who's been bad.
I don't understand it. I really don't get it. I was expecting so much more from Markstrom. And he could turn up, but it's not like this is Ville Husso, who's had a great regular season but just didn't have the playoff run. Markstrom has looked good at points in these playoffs, so I don't know what's happening. So the top 5 scorers in these playoffs all have played 11 games. Zibanejad, going in reverse order, Zibanejad 14 points, Evander Kane 15 points, Nikita Kucherov 15 points, Leon Draisaitl 22, Connor McDavid 25. 25 points.
But we knew that is what they had to do if they had any chance of advancing.
But we didn't. I don't think anybody actually thought they'd do it.
I could think of Connor McDavid persisting through the clutch and grab and the zeroing in on him and maybe even amping up his game. I didn't think he'd be able to find a new tier, a genuinely new level that no NHL player has been on in modern history. I'd say the way he's playing right now, this is the best hockey I've watched in my life, full stop. No, I'm not scaling to eras or era adjusted or, if Gretzky had that. No, I'm just talking in terms of raw output, what we're seeing on the ice. I have never seen an NHL player, a hockey player anywhere play this good ever, period. This is like we are watching prime LeBron. We are watching prime whatever.
Ronaldo.
He has changed. He has changed expectations in terms of what the best player on the ice can do. I wouldn't be surprised if I go the rest of my life without seeing a player play this well, but we all know that that's not how it's going to shake out. In 20 years, we'll get another Connor McDavid who's going to raise the level even more. Anyhow.
There was a former player who's like, if I invented a time machine today and dropped Connor McDavid as he is into the 1980s, he scores 500 points. Mm-hmm. Literally.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the St. Louis, Colorado series, and I'm going to open this one up. Obviously, there was that controversial crash into the net wherein Nazem Kadri collided with the St. Louis defender reaching for a puck, went into Binnington, who was the St. Louis Blues' only hope of beating the Avalanche, it seemed, because he was a very hot goalie at the time. Took him out of the series, maybe the playoffs. Looks like the St. Louis Blues might be out of the playoffs tonight if this score holds. St. Louis, depending on what you think of the collision aside, you can understand why they're angry. That's that. Nazem Kadri, as a brown professional hockey player, has faced an onslaught of the most disgusting, heinous, but unfortunately consistent racist attacks online. And all I can say to that is, I'm not surprised. This isn't new. This isn't something that has only happened for the first time now. This is persistent. It is targeted. Plain and simple, it is gross. It has no place in the game. And when you hear people of a different ethnic group than what the rest of their team might be, or you hear people who are visible minorities talk about how difficult it is, this is what they're talking about. I'm happy and sad that this has a focus because it's the playoffs. It's the biggest, there's a hyper focus on that series specifically. All the media attention is there, and that's why it blew up. But this isn't the only time. Those aren't the only messages that he's gotten or his family's gotten or any other player of color. It happens all the time. It's disheartening. And I have to say, like, hockey doesn't matter. Like, when you see that, you're like, wow, hockey really doesn't matter right now, huh? Like, it just doesn't. I'm not.
When you go out and drop a hat trick on him next game in revenge.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It helps.
I am not like I love Nazem Kadri's game and everything he does is fantastic. I think he's a bonehead who's made a lot of stupid decisions on the ice. He has all the talent and he's squandered a lot of it, for better. Like, despite all of the good things that he did in Toronto, he essentially ran himself out of town with idiotic decisions in the playoffs. And I still have to say, watching him drop a hat trick was so satisfying.
That's a justice boner.
Oh God, it was so good. It was so good. And I don't cheer for the success of the Colorado Avalanche. And any other time I would have been like, hell yeah, I hope Nazem Kadri gets a hat trick this game. I loved it. I loved it so much. Yeah, it's just
series has been good.
I think with Binnington still in play with how hot he was, and Husso for all the great things he did in the regular season just hasn't been there in the playoffs. It might have been different had that
worst possible hand to be dealt.
Oh God,
really Husso.
Yeah. I mean, it might give whoever signs him, St. Louis or anyone else, a cheaper contract now. But, if this score, it's currently 3-0 in game 5. If that holds, then that's it for the Blues. And I have to say, you wish Binnington would have stayed healthy because I think that series would have been more interesting. Avalanche versus whoever comes out of that Western Conference Battle of Alberta is going to be, I wouldn't know who to pick.
We are so very close to a McKinnon versus McDavid series.
Oh.
I'm taking Colorado over everybody.
Yeah, probably in like 4. Let's be honest. They're still the Oilers if that happens.
Had Florida lost by last episode?
No.
Yeah, Florida got swept.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, because the last thing we talked about how they don't do anything, whereas Stamkos is out there blocking shots and going back to the locker room like 4 times because he's broken.
We don't need to talk about how Tampa Bay is the consummate championship winning team in the NHL again, but I do want to talk a little bit about Andrei Vasilevskiy.
That might be one of the craziest stats in hockey history, what he's got going right now.
10-0 in his last 10 potentially series clinching games. He's won all of them. Has shutouts in 6 of his last 7.
He is the best goalie on the planet.
100%.
No questions asked.
100%. And we're watching the NHL playoffs where people say random and people say clutch and people say rose to the occasion. He doesn't rise to the occasion. This is just who he is. He is clutch. He is the most ice cold clutch player in the NHL right now. And until Connor McDavid single-handedly wins the cup for the Edmonton Oilers, I don't know if anyone else comes close to him.
Yeah. Last 7 elimination games, a .995 save percentage, 1 goal against and 6 shutouts.
It was on like 210 shots or something like that.
And the Leafs, I think, were the only team to score the goal.
Morgan Rielly is the only guy to score on Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Which was a great shot, by the way, by Rielly.
Yeah. It's absolutely insane. And the thing that makes it crazy, too, at least in context to the Florida series, it's not like the argument against Chris Osgood when he was like getting 18 shots behind those Red Wings All-Star teams. Florida almost dropped a 50 spot on them in game 4, and he stopped every single one of them. Florida ran Tampa's show that game and lost 1-0.
We talk about a hot goalie being able to bring an unlikely team to the cup finals or even win them the cup. And we talk about, Tampa's tired. I think Tampa is tired, but Andrei Vasilevskiy very clearly isn't. Andrei Vasilevskiy might single-handedly win them the 3rd straight cup, which is almost unheard of in the modern era. Well, it is unheard of.
It is literally unheard of.
Well, Tampa Bay is getting contributions from the guys they've picked up this year. The Brandon Hagel's been decent. Is it Nick Paul?
Nick Paul, Ross Colton.
Corey Perry's got 5 goals.
I think Max said, where did they grow these guys in a lab?
Tampa's players are going to be the new Marc Donks.
Someone's got to do it, right? Yeah.
After Pittsburgh just paid their Marc Donk like $30 million.
I have a hard time looking at whoever comes out of New York, Carolina, and saying they're the favorite against Tampa Bay. I don't care how tired they are.
Until Tampa Bay loses, I am now going to do they are winning the cup.
Yeah. Colorado would have to, I think, sweep Edmonton for me to have a vote of confidence for them in the finals.
I don't know. Colorado's lost 1 game through 2 rounds. If they hold on today, that's
3-1.
That's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but I don't know, man.
They're the Kings until dethroned.
And they might get to play Mike Smith in the conference finals. So
Florida, like you said, they weren't bad every game. They definitely had games where they dominated play. 1 goal on the power play is pathetic. Or however many.
Penalty kill was like 68%.
I'm not even going to get into it, but just the whole rumors of like a few of the guys going to a strip club until like 3 a.m. the night before.
They did not play like they went to a strip club.
No, they played great hockey.
Maybe they did play like they went to the strip club. Who am I to judge?
That's a story if Tampa outshoots them 40-15 and blows them out like 6-0. No, like I said, Florida ran Tampa's show in game 4 and Vasilevskiy was having none of it. That's all that was.
Rangers and Carolina very quickly here. Rangers took the first 2 at home. The Rangers took their 2 at home. I don't know what to make. I understand. I think I understand who the New York Rangers are. Like, I think home ice advantage works for them. I think Shesterkin definitely is the key to them going anywhere in these playoffs. Neither of those are, a hot take. I don't understand the Carolina Hurricanes because I think they are a better team than losing every road game.
Oh, yeah. What are you talking about? They're very easy to understand. 6-0 at home. 0-5 on the road.
That's the thing.
I think Rod Brennamore said, I don't know why we're so bad on the road.
It doesn't really make sense. Their lineup is better. You can't really pick it's not like they're doing what Florida's doing where like 1 or 2 facets of their game have fallen off a cliff. Like maybe they are, it's just the luck of the draw and they're getting goalied, et cetera, et cetera. It's just Sterkin's not an easy goalie to face, but Carolina's, even if you think they're the favorite, they're kind of in trouble here. They are not running away with this like you think they should with the disparity or the perceived disparity in talent. The Rangers could steal this from them, despite the Hurricanes being the favorites going in.
The only downside if the Rangers win is that sets up a conference final between Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevskiy, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for 7 straight 1-0 games.
That's absolutely what you're going to see. I will say that in that matchup, based on what we've seen these playoffs, I'll take Vasilevskiy there. And that's not stated lightly because Shesterkin is the Vezina winner. Could arguably be, you can make a really strong argument for the Hart. He probably won't win it, but still. But Vasilevskiy is just a freak.
Well, he's a Hart nominee. He was one of the
nominee, but yeah. I don't think he'll win.
No, I don't think so either, but my word.
Yeah, it's...
Imagine being a Hart nominee, Vezina winner, and you could be the second best goalie in the next round of the playoffs.
Not my problem.
No. Yeah, speaking of series that makes the fans' hearts pop.
That, if New York does, which I don't think New York's the favorite to win the next 3 games, like, and win the series. I still expect Carolina to wake up. But man, that could be the most polar opposites of conference finals. You get 7 1-0 games potentially between the Rangers and Lightning. And then on the other side, you've got McKinnon and Makar and McDavid just flying around the ice at Mach 5 for potentially 7 games.
I don't know what to make these playoffs. All of my predictions are gone. I can't predict anything for you anymore. That's that. Yeah. We'll see how it rolls out.
Yeah, we're saying this, and now Carolina is going to win the next 2 games by a combined score of 15-0, and Calgary's going to rattle off 3 straight wins.
Okay, folks, a little bit of a long one again. Thank you for bearing with us. We're going to get back firmly in the prospect profile starting next episode, and a lot of really exciting interviews and content to come. So stay tuned for that. We're going to jump into overtime, which is brought to you by our Patreon supporters. If you want to help support the Winged Wheel podcast, become a member of the Dub Club, patreon.com/Winged Wheel podcast. You are 10% cooler. You will automatically be an inch taller than Brad, despite your height previous.
Oh, so it'll be your height.
I'll take that. There's just, we can't say enough. We don't have the words to tell you how much the support of our patrons means to us. And it allows us to do everything that we are able to do for this show and beyond, and the growth that we've had. And, you know, you've made us the #1 Red Wings podcast on the air, and that is driven at its heart by our patrons. So thank you so very much. Okay. Connor Dukes says goalie prospects are tough to read. Yeah. What are the chances Kosa is our true #1 in the future?
We picked him 15th overall and traded up to do it. I don't say this lightly, but he better be.
He has to be for that draft stock.
He must be.
Yeah. The chances are good. You see the raw talent in him. You've seen him have, like, especially for stretches of the season, play really great hockey in net. He needs to keep progressing. Goalies aren't, we say goalies are voodoo, and that doesn't mean that they don't have a development path or things that they need to improve in their game. I think half of that statement is people just don't understand goalies. Chances are good as they can be for a goalie at this stage. You can look at goalies who are drafted higher, and I think you have just the same amount of uncertainty. It's hard to have a goalie who comes in and does like a McDavid or a Crosby or an Ovechkin type thing. So chances are good, but it's still a massive, massive risk.
Yeah, he's still very raw, despite how good he is. He's got a lot of refining to do in his game, but it was always an interesting pick to me because, not to relate everything back to football, but it was very similar to what the Bills did with Josh Allen. It's like, hey, this is the physical freak who has all the tools. We just need to mold him into what he needs to be. And it worked. That's what the Red Wings are doing with Kosa. They have the physical freak who has all the tools and the right mentality. We just need to mold him into, to refine everything. So far, so good, but he's still a few years away.
There needs to be patience. And the good news is Nedeljkovic is 26. There's so much runway where it's not like left-handed defensemen where the Red Wings need help now. And we actually have to hope that Johansson makes the Red Wings. Okay. Steve Elon says we're still a bit from competing, but when do we start going after the big fish in free agency? Would you say Yzerman being an intimidating GM could scare some players away or attract those seeing his passion for winning? In terms of being a big fish, I think there's different arguments to be had here. I'd say we're still a couple years away from seeing that from Yzerman. In terms of being an intimidating GM, I don't get that perception at all. GM is different than coach, and people see that he was a large part, if not the main architect of a now 2-time verging on 3rd cup winning team in Tampa Bay. They're going to want to be a part of that in Detroit.
Here's the way I'll phrase it as best I can. Look at all the good teams in the NHL. The really good teams. Pick whatever one you want. Edmonton, Colorado, Calgary, Carolina, Rangers, to use the teams that are still left. Most of their core of the good team is homegrown, drafted and developed. Colorado, you look at McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog. Carolina, you have Aho, Slavin, Pesci. Obviously Edmonton, McDavid, Draisaitl, etc. When you realize your core is starting to get good enough to make the playoffs, then you supplement that core by adding in free agency. Then free agency should not be the centerpiece of your team. If you do that, you're probably not going to win. But if you are in the position that the New York Rangers are, where, you know, hypothetically you have Shesterkin coming up and they're starting to be a good team, and it's like, okay, now we're going to get a Panarin to put this team over the top, hypothetically. Something like that. That's what you do. When the foundation is in place and you go, yep, we can win with this. Okay, now we need to improve upon this.
Breaking news in the middle of the podcast. Max Bultman has tweeted out that Dylan Larkin has switched representatives to Matt Williams, Pat Brisson, and the CAA. So Larkin is eligible for his extension starting July 1st and has switched his agency. So gearing up for that contract.
Brisson's that's
hitter.
An interesting decision.
He's a big hitter.
That's an interesting. Steve might not be happy about this.
If you listen closely, I can hear the Brinks truck backing up.
Yeah.
I don't think Steve would be happy. I don't think
Steve's capable of being happy, if I'm being honest.
Not with agents. Yeah. He probably hates them. I think we've had a little bit of insight into how the negotiations work in the past, and it's not the same for every player. So for someone high profile like Larkin, Steve might actually be in the room. But I know a lot of like the legwork is done by the assistant GM. But then again, Verbeek's gone now, right? So I don't know.
I'll fill in. Don't worry.
Well, now that you're off the coaching list,
$5, Bob. Best I can do.
$5. My God.
And a Coney dog.
He can only afford to say that because he's a billionaire. It's like when I run for president, I won't take a salary. It's like, yeah, because you're a billionaire, of course.
Yeah, is he just, insider trading all day?
The next question from Stevie Lund is, what was your favorite / most memorable vacation that you've had? I loved Scotland when I went, and I can't wait to go back. I've always said if I ever just give up on the world, I'm going to get
Hey, if you get good at golf, we can go play St. Andrews, the old course.
What do you mean if I get good at golf? I just told you I shot a 70.
I stand. No, you can't have over, I think, a 26 handicap, and they won't let you play old course.
That's not too many shots. I just have to shave like 30 shots off my game or something like that.
Oh yeah,
at least. Favorite vacation you've ever had?
I don't know. I'm a poor, so I've only been on like 3.
You went to Toronto once.
Yeah, that's awful.
I went to Cambridge.
It took me 3 hours.
Ontario.
Yeah, last time I went to Toronto, it took me 3 hours and I'm 85 kilometers away. God, I hate that city. Mine Riviera in Mexico was really fun.
Oh, cool.
That was a hell of a week. We did a lot of stuff in a very short amount of time, like the off-roading ATV, the cave diving, all that stuff. That was a good one.
Oh, you're actually... When you go to those places, you do it properly. I never do excursions because I'm just like, I just want to float in the water. You all do whatever. I just want to float.
That was the last 2 days of I'm drinking on the beach and not moving. I'm very tired.
If I'm not golfing on those trips, I'm literally just polluting my body.
Yeah, amazing. And then
mine's Jackson Hole.
Of course it is.
It's fake.
That vacation. Actually is not my favorite vacation, but I wanted to just say that.
Stevie Lund finishes by saying, thanks, guys. Give extra hugs to your loved ones today. We didn't mention anything, but it goes without saying that our hearts are broken and go out to the victims and the families in Uvalde, Texas. Tragedy isn't even a strong enough word to talk about that. But yeah, hug your loved one. Hug your loved ones. Matt T says, how do you feel about the Wings players and how they're faring at the Worlds? Well, very quickly here, Mo Seider has a goal and 5 assists. Pius Suter has 3 goals and 5 assists. And Magnus Hellberg has 4 wins and a shutout. So those are probably leading the charge for the Red Wings. Elsewhere, Verana has a goal and Filip Hronek's like a +1. I think that's the only thing the Red Wings noted. And Riley Barber has a goal and is a +2. So it's the Seider show. It's the Pius Suter show. And Hellberg seems to be doing well. So cool.
Neat.
Yep. Did you see Tatar hugging Franz Nielsen? Because I think Franz Nielsen's he's retiring.
He's done.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Everybody in that tournament is very hungover for most games.
Yes, it seems like it. Okay. What else do we have here? Brad Stepstool says, which name do you want to hear least when the Red Wings step up to the podium in Montreal, and why?
I am not reverse jinxing that into existence. Nope. Can't make me.
Yeah, I think you did it last time. No, you didn't, but...
No, I did it with the Rasmussen draft. I'm not doing it again.
Right. Who will take more effort for you to personally root for? I think I speak for all of us when we personally root for whoever is called.
Yeah.
But who? Let's change the question. Who would take more effort for you to come around on? Mine would be... It's a cheap answer, but mine would be Geeky.
Damn it, that was mine.
It's all of ours because we are so scared when, like, one of the first things out of a mouth is, oh, he's big. Like, that's my... I don't ever... If you have to justify picking a guy in the top 10 because he's big and that's one of his main attributes, you shouldn't pick him in the top 10.
Congrats, he was born that way.
Yeah. He's not my biggest fear at 8, for whatever that's worth. Because there is actual talent there, but for the record, yeah, no. I always have a soft spot for the small skill guys. So like a Savoia and Yzer, like I love guys like that because they tend to beat the odds more often than they don't.
This might sound crazy, but I'm a little scared if we take Brad Lambert.
No, there's a massive risk, colossally low floor with Lambert. Like he hasn't been producing in Finland.
That's why I think it's potentially scary.
Because you're drafting him to be a centerman. And he's not really producing in leagues that are significantly worse than the NHL when his peers are doing substantially better. So, yeah, you'd have to make a really strong case. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you'd have to make a strong case for him at 8.
If you would have told 2021 Evan that I was scared to draft Brad Lambert, you'd say, I'm out of my goddamn mind.
I know. And the same thing happens every year where a guy like drops off a cliff. Sometimes it's for good reason, and sometimes teams get a gem in the second round, like the Islanders did with what's his name?
Bodie Wild?
No,
Atu Ratu.
Yeah. Which seems to be going well for them so far. Okay, folks, this is run long. We're going to wrap up and record our Patreon exclusive OT. I'd like to thank all of our listeners, our name level sponsors, Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation. Bettman should lose his job based on the Yotes. Change my mind. Brandon M, Chimmy, Chumbawamba, not Chumbawamba, Citizen High Five, Coyote season tickets in Tempe, Craig Kibble, Daniel Garcia, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Doesn't Tuesnit, Give Blood Fight Probert, Greach, Hana Lee, Hassam Al-Qassem, I Leave My Wife for Cider, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, Justin in the Angry Mob, Kaylin Wood, King Tone, Kyle Hashman, Marcus, Matt McKay, Matthew M. Rice, Nicholas Fritz, Nick Perks, R.A., Ryan Hubbard, Scott Martin, Sean Levine, Stay Fresh Cheesebags, Zach Spring, Adam Now I Finished Better Than Ernie, Antonio Gracias, Babe Landeskog, Ben Barron, Carl Bertanen Aluski, Connor Leighton, Dave W., Evans Parking Garage, Evans Bingo Card, James Laporte, Jeremiah Dobo, Jeremy Brocker, JM Rhapsody, John Evans, Josh Yelton, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Matt Keeler, Matt S., Maximilian Cheesebags, Missing Vladdy More Than Ever, Papa Woody, Puck Norris, Reed, Revi DeLuca, Sam Bankson, the Stay Fresh Cheesebag, the pod is full of Brad takes, Trevor Pevivar, Zach Handyside, and Zach McCann, a driving range superstar. Thank you all so much, and we will be back with you on Sunday.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to check out wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find links to other ways to support the show, such as Patreon, official podcast apparel, and more. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at Winged Wheel Pod. And of course, the hosts at Brad Crisco, at Ryan Hanna WWP, and at Hockeytown Evan.